We continue our previews of SEC baseball teams for the 2022 season. Joining me today to preview the Georgia Bulldogs, I think an under-the-radar team coming into 2023, my buddy Anthony Dasher, who probably knows more Georgia baseball than anybody alive. Dave Perno might have an argument there. But in any case, Dash, you're one of my favorite dudes to talk baseball with. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, man, my pleasure, Chris.
All right, let's talk Georgia, because when we were going through the lineup ahead of time, it was one name after another that I already know. How is this team in Athens, which was in a regional a year ago, kind of flying under everybody's radar? Because I don't think they've been ranked anywhere, have they?
I have not seen any. If you look at all the people who do rankings today, I've yet to see Georgia in a top 25, but that's probably because there's so many question marks about their pitching. That's a question. I mean, they've got some guys with experience that they're going to have in the starting rotation. Jaden Woods has a potential, I think, to be one of the better, starters, in the conference this year. But he's got to find a way to, control his slider a little bit more to keep people, off his fastball. Because last year, people would sit on that fastball, and he gave up like 10, 11 home runs in winning through last year. And then they've got to stay healthy. Liam Sullivan, who's going to be the Saturday guy, had some issues last year. He cost him a few weeks in the season. And so that's probably the biggest thing. They've got some good arms they brought in. We talked earlier about they brought in 4 transfers who were closers at their respective schools the season before. And they've got 5 freshmen this year. Each are high-end velo guys who could come in and play a variety of different roles. Could see one of those slide in to be the Sunday guy. Luke Wagner, who's been around a long time, is up this velo to 93 miles per hour as a 4-pitch pitcher, can have a big impact. So that's just the biggest question. Offensively, Coach Strickland has said it's his 10th year. This may be his best offensive team that he's had. He's had some good teams. They were good last year. They could swing the bat last season, but with the addition of guys like Charlie Condon, who redshirted last year, as a guy, probably the strongest guy on the team right now with exit velos in 116, 117, 118 mile per hour.
Wow.
Range has just been incredibly impressive. And to go with a lineup, as you mentioned, with Connor Tate back, Parks Harbor, Corey Collins, these names, if you follow SEC baseball, you're quite familiar with right now. Ben Anderson, Fernando Gonzalez, Cole Wagner. It's a team with a lot of experience, a lot of SEC at-bats. But the question is, can they get enough pitching to take advantage of this lineup, which I think is going to score a bunch of runs?
Yeah, or any of the guys, I swear some of these guys have almost been there since the Obama administration. It's got to be close, right?
I tell you, Ben Anderson and Connor Tate are both will both be 25 by the time the season.
Wow.
They played a lot of baseball in the SEC, but they had with COVID, the COVID year, they had another opportunity to come back with a major league draft. The way it's configured now, they did not get picked, so had an opportunity to come back, and both of them are going to try to take advantage of that chance.
Yeah, Connor Tate, I think, has been one of the more underrated players in the league the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, 13 home runs last year, 436 on base, 614 slugging. Parks Harbor's numbers were a little bit south of that in terms of the slash lines, but did hit 13 home runs. Collins is a guy that has had a ton of potential. Anderson's a guy that I think when we've talked, they've kind of compared him to Brett Butler in terms of skill set. If you're a Braves fan or Major League fan from the 80s and 90s, they got some transfers coming in. Fernando Gonzalez is back to catch, where he's done some respectable things there for sure. I mean, this to me, with the transfers they've got, Charlie Condon, who I guess is a freshman, Mason LaPlante from Yale, Sebastian Murillo at short, Will David from Sanford will be a factor somewhere. I mean, this is, you just said it a minute ago, but that's a lot of bats. And the thing that I always like about lineups, Dash, it's not those first 3 or 4 guys. Yeah, that makes a difference, but it's are you tough to pitch through 1 to 9? Because you get in postseason, people can pitch around you. This reads like a lineup that might be hard to pitch around.
It could be, and that's what Coach Strickland is banking on. I mean, you talk about 8 and 9 hole hitters, this year, the way it's stacked up right now. Murillo, coming from Long Beach State, did not have was not really regarded as a, quote unquote top hitter, but here in the fall, he hit 4 home runs. Now, I can't tell you that's going to continue going on, this season, but he's a very versatile player. He swung, like I say, swung a good bat. He can play outfield. He can play infield, third base, short, second. And then LaPlante brings an element of speed that Georgia has not had. He stole 19 or 21 bases last year for Yale. Another guy who can play, short and second. So Coach Strickland is going to have a ton of options. I mean, they're going to be able to run out, different lineups if they want to, pretty much, every game, depending on, what they've got to face on the mound. But yeah, we'll I know he's very excited about the offense. We'll see how it all plays out. But look what Georgia has from potentially from their bats this year. It could be, like I said, it could be fun to watch.
Boy, I just noticed that they only attempted 24 steals last year.
Yeah,
we're down 17.
No.
This is a newer generation of baseball they're playing in Athens.
Yeah, it is. I still don't know if you're going to see Georgia all of a sudden, start cutting it loose per se. But again, you look at the bats they've got. They're a team that does from time to time sit back and try to rely on a home run. Sometimes you can get yourself in trouble with that. Obviously, if a pitcher is going good. But I think they've got the from the standpoint of you're seeing guys striking out less. We saw a big drop in that last year. I think you'll see that continue. You may start seeing more hit and run, that kind of thing. They certainly got the guy to do it, but again, it's going to be in the middle of that lineup. It could be, like I said, with Tate, Harbor, Collins, and Condon. Those are going to be four guys right there who can go deep at any time, and so I'm sure you'll see them try to play that to their advantage.
Well, the pitching is the issue, as you mentioned, but there's guys here that have pitched before. Jaden Woods is a guy both of us like. You mentioned it's just getting that other pitch over. He's probably going to be the Friday guy. Liam Sullivan, Nolan Crisp, both pitched. I think plenty of innings in the SEC. Luke Wagner is maybe the 4. He's pitched in the league. You talked about bringing in 4 closers, or maybe 4 closers who probably none of them will close. You think that's Chandler Marsh, who pitched a year ago. It is the pitching staff is apparently the issue, but there are some pieces here, it appear to me.
There is, and there's another name I have not mentioned yet, and that's Coleman Willis. Was a freshman last year. He was some projected him to be a first or even second round pick 2 years ago from Houston County. Went to the same school as Jaden Woods, but he ran into issues like a lot of freshmen pitchers in the SEC do. He got lit up. He lost some confidence. But again, here's a guy. He's about 6'5", about 210 pounds. He has an extremely live arm. He looks great in the bullpen, but last year he just struggled. He got hit around a little bit. But from an arm talent standpoint, he may be about as good as Georgia, has. It's just a matter of him regaining some of that confidence that he lost last year. If he can do that, he's going to be another guy to possibly look to step in. Maybe even it's a Sunday guy, definitely a midweek guy. But then again, I mentioned you've got some freshmen too. Leighton Finley's a kid from Richmond Hill, who actually is going to probably wind up being a two-way player for Georgia. Maybe not so much this year, but down the road. He'll remind you of a young Jonathan Cannon. He's 6'5", 210 pounds, very live arm, can throw 95, 96. They got Matthew Hoskins, who's another tough-minded right-hander. He's got very good size, can throw in the mid-90s. He's another candidate they could throw in there for several, different roles. So again, they've got guys. I think this year's staff as a whole is going to be a harder throwing one than last year. You can, last season there's probably only 2 or 3 guys that could bring it to the bullpen. It would scare the opposing hitter with their velo. This year they probably got 6 or 7 that's capable of going out and maybe perhaps doing that. So, but again, guys just have to get experience, and when they get an opportunity, they've got to take advantage of it. If they can, then Georgia, I think could have a pretty decent year, possibly get back to the regionals again.
I feel like we're getting omens here. Your dog made an appearance pre-podcast in the frame. I don't know if you heard mine in the back. I mean, the dogs are excited about this season, man. It's obvious. Well, okay. How do you see this going? Because, I mean, I think that experience is a big way to win in this league. You saw A&M do it a year ago, and I think particularly having guys that are known commodities. These guys are good players, a lot of these guys. The pitching, as you mentioned, is an issue, and look, the league is loaded this year, but this seems like a team that has potential to surprise a bit.
I do, and I say that because of the bats. I mean, all these guys we mentioned have played a lot of SEC baseball. They've seen the best that the league has to offer. did a decent enough job. Last year when the team went to Tennessee, they swung the bats pretty well. They had a little bit, some success against Vandy, last season, down here in Athens. So that's not going to be a factor. I don't think you're going to see, Georgia's hitters, intimidated by anything they see this year. It's just again just going to be a matter if the pitching can do its job and make it where 6 or 7 runs will be enough to win a game and not just go out and get smashed around like they did in some contests last year. Because last year Georgia's rotation it was worn out, totally worn out by the time the year was done in the regionals at North Carolina. But if they can, again, the pitching can hold its own offensively. Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but I think it could carry Georgia a good little ways this year. I do think the bats are that good.
All right, I'm sitting here glancing to my right about the schedule, and Georgia's 4 weekend opponents. They've got Jacksonville State, Princeton, Georgia Tech, which I think is going to go Athens, Atlanta, neutral.
Athens,
if I remember correctly,
and Coolray Field in Lawrenceville, where the Gwinnett Stripers play. So yes, be three games, 3 different places.
And I think, do they play midweeks too this year?
Oh yeah, they play They've got midweek games against Clemson, Georgia Southern. I know they play a couple of times this year, but that's probably, as far as non-conference go, that's really the only teams of name, if you want to call it that they have to go against. Kennesaw State, they've been a very good program over the last few years, and they get some trouble in past seasons, but. So I think it's a manageable schedule. I mean, SEC is always going to be a grind, as we all know. But they'll have a chance, I think, to get off to a good start this year. And they opened up SEC play this year against South Carolina in Athens. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, no shortage for midweek opponents down there. I guess what I meant to ask is, do they play Tech in the midweek too? I forgot to look at the schedule.
No, they just play Tech in that weekend series here next month.
Okay, I've got the weekends in front of me is all I have. Okay, they avoid Alabama, Mississippi State, A&M. I don't know that, other than maybe 1 or 2 teams in this league, there's no passes out. Maybe there's some teams you'd rather avoid than others, but I think that Georgia's always helped itself with RPI by playing some of those. I mean, like you're down there in an area of the country where the teams in the off-brand leagues are good teams. Atlantic Sun, that kind of thing.
The Southern Conference too, for that matter. I mean, Wofford is a very good team area. Teams of that ilk. That's it. Western Carolina, it's had good program before and come in and play Georgia extremely well. So, but yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of good opponents. That come to Athens.
Well, and I guess what I was getting at is that helps the RPI. We've seen Georgia have some seasons where the record was dangerously close to 500, yet would get in the tournament based on those kind of things. And I think, to me, you're not seeing a lot of talk about Georgia. You're not seeing Georgia picked high in the forecast, but this to me sort of reads like a team where if the pitching stays healthy and gives Georgia and Strickland, who I can't believe has been there a decade now, what he's hoping for, I think you might see this team in a regional again.
I think they'll make it. I mean, the big thing for Georgia is just getting past that regional, which they have not done since, hard to believe, but since 2008.
Man,
and that's been the biggest, stickler with Strickland's critics, is the team is not advanced to a super regional or going to the College World Series now in 24 years. I'm sorry, 14 years right now. So it's been a long time, and that's what a lot of people are wondering when that's going to happen. Now, Georgia, kind of changing subjects a little bit, but Georgia yesterday, Athletic Association announced some improvements, some very, very good improvements.
Yeah,
they're going to be making to Foley Field. It's going to help Strickland from a recruiting standpoint. Finally, get Georgia up to somewhat of a par with some of the other programs in the league as far as their facilities go. I think will help, but taking that next step is definitely on the minds of a lot of people. I mean, that's something I think Coach Strickland is he knows that more than anybody. They need to find a way to take that next step, and we'll see if this year's team can get it done.
Yeah, it's weird. I think he's been to Omaha at Kent State, was it?
Yeah, right before he came to
not in Athens.
And
he's had some good teams. Yeah, it's weird. Well, I'm glad to hear they're making – go ahead.
Now, I was going to say the 2020 season, the one that wiped out by COVID, that's the one that had
Yeah.
Emerson Hancock, had Cole Wilcox topping the rotation. They had gotten off to, I think it was like 13-3 start. We're getting ready to go to Florida to open up SEC play. And I always kind of wondered what would have happened with that team if COVID hadn't, canceled everything. But, just haven't, since then, have not been able to get over that hump.
Yeah, you had a few teams in the East wondering what that would have looked like. That's just a shame that one got canceled because I would have loved to have seen how it played out. But
yeah,
the other thing too, the East this year, Dash, really interesting. You got, usually you see in Vandy at the top. Vandy's considered by most the third best team in the division because of Tennessee and of course Florida's got a lot of guys coming back. Kentucky has loaded up again with transfers. South Carolina has got really good arms, Will Sanders being one of those, and I'm leaving somebody out. But in any case, should be a very interesting year in the East.
No doubt. And I got to see Florida, when Georgia went down to Jacksonville right before the football game, they played Florida in an exhibition game. And I got to see the Gators up close and personal then. And that's another lineup that's going to be tough for opposing pitchers to navigate. They've got some real talent. And but yes, another deep team just like they typically are. And it's going to be fun to see. I mean, I don't. It's always tough when you try to figure out who's going to finish what spot in the East. But I think there are all the teams you just mentioned. I think have a chance to really make some noise.
But the one thing we know is Carter Holton will be the pitcher of the year, right?
Well, I like to see it from a personal standpoint, but
yeah.
Carter, I know, has worked very hard to get where he's at, and the year, I know the summer he had working with Team USA, I think he really got a lot out of that experience, and a little bigger than what he was last year, and I'm expecting a big year from a cousin there.
Yeah, to let folks in, you said it on the joke. Carter Holton, who's Vanderbilt's Friday Night Guys, is Dash's cousin. So you'll follow two SEC programs closely this year. When people want to check out your work, tell them where to go.
Yeah, you can find me on my website, our website, rather UGAsports.com, part of the Rivals Network, and on Twitter at Anthony Dasher1.
Yeah, Dash is the guy for Georgia baseball, has been for a couple of decades. He's a good friend of mine, one of the best dudes in the business. Dash, we really appreciate you joining us today, and can't wait to see how it plays. And by the way, plug for Athens here. I'm not being paid. If you've never been to a game at Foley Field, and I've been to a few series, that is one of the most beautiful venues in college baseball. I mean, it is just gorgeous.
It's cozy. I mean, it's right there it's on campus, around some apartments, kind of like I won't put it in a Wrigley Field category, but that kind of same kind of setting. You know what I'm talking about? Just real family oriented, folksy type, however you want to describe it. It's really cool place to watch a ball game.
Yeah, I love it. Do they still have the frat house in right field?
They got the frat house in right field, the big greenhouse. When opposing teams come, you can always count on the frat guys out there, given all the aggravation that they'll tend to do. But it's a great atmosphere, and with the improvements now that they're going to make, new player amenities, I think it's going to help only help the program, and ultimately it's going to help the fan experience, as well.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. Dash, can't wait for us to be playing baseball soon.
Yes.
Hopefully I'll find an excuse to get down to Athens at some point in the next year or two. And thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. I'll probably be coming up to Nashville for that Georgia series too, so I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Well, we will be dining together if that happens. All right. He's Anthony Dasher of UJAsports.com. I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching. Again, we've either have previewed your favorite SEC baseball team or we will be. So best way to catch all that, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.